this is the 61st.
Start over or?
No, we can keep on doing this.
It's the 61st.
61st Test for the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2222, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. The 61st episode.
Mm-hmm. It's been, we worked it out just earlier. So for us, it's the 61st we've recorded. And it's the 28th I can't add up. The 30th that's coming out.
That's true.
That people in the past will have been able to listen to, as far as we know.
Yeah, we've actually recorded 60.
60 so far. This will be the 61st we've recorded. But only until this episode, 29 of them have successfully gone back that we know of.
Yeah. Well,
and this was the 30th.
Lots of numbers to crunch.
So many numbers.
Last week we had a pretty eventful episode, basically, and the week before we also had a pretty eventful episode. So this week we planned really eventless.
Right, much more calm.
Yeah.
No surprises.
No sirens going off in the background. No time zone confusion. And we're actually, I think we mentioned that we were going to talk about space travel. That was what we had planned 2 weeks ago, but then the downturn happened. But then realizing when we speak about space travel, it might make sense to speak about space first.
Right, where are these places that we're going to? I mean, we've mentioned a few offhand, but we can be a bit more thorough.
Yeah, and I also think it's a good point. It's the episode we put under the name Soul Federation, or Soul actually, as everybody calls it, which is kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of the government governing all the Earth settlements across our solar system.
Yeah, like taking care of administration and organizational responsibilities.
Yeah, but it doesn't include like all the planets in the universe. It basically includes everything where humans or Earth citizens live, basically.
Yeah.
Earth and wherever Earthlings went to.
Right, and at the moment that's within our solar system.
Yeah. And then I think I've mentioned UFOPOO before. Is where I work. So this is the organization.
What does it stand for again? It's an acronym, yeah, but I forget what it stands for.
Solar or UFOPOO?
UFOPOO.
The United Federation of Planets Organization.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. So we can speak about this, especially why it has organization in it twice at some point. But they're supposed to be like kind of like a United Nations for all aliens, or that's what it's supposed to be at some point.
That's the intention at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So it still includes the Illuminati and the Parsians, and basically that's the three planets or areas of the galaxy that are combined in the UFOPOO. Yeah. And it's supposed to be some sort of kind of like United Galaxies, or however you want to call it. But so far we're mostly talking about the name. Yeah. So what are we going to call it? So that's as far as we got so far after the...
Which is important, naming a thing.
Yeah, 20 years, and we're almost decided on the name.
Yeah.
But the Soul is basically, it's much more straightforward. It's basically an organization managing all the Earth colonies and bases and nations and planets in the solar system. And then I think before we go into the different planets, it might make sense to
explain what those different things you just mentioned are.
Yeah, exactly. So on Earth we have nations. I think everybody knows what those are, like France.
Countries is another word for them. Yeah.
And but on all the other celestial bodies, there's different kind of versions. So there's also nations, but it's basically it starts off with bases.
Right. Let's go from smallest to largest.
Yeah.
So the smallest unit of organization is a base.
Yeah, exactly. Just Earth citizens sometimes being there. And I think bases are non-permanent, or at least the residents are non-permanent.
Right, they get cycled through.
Yeah. Although I've heard of people living on a base for decades, but it's not supposed to be permanent.
No.
And colonies are, let's say, pre-nations.
So they're settlements, but they're intended to be permanent, to grow up into a nation at some point.
Exactly. I think it's like adolescent nation. And that's kind of the idea. And I think with nations, that at least each celestial body needs to have at least 2.
Okay, so first there's a colony, and then after that colony grows enough, then there are at least 2 nations in that colony.
Exactly. So it's the international galactical law decides, at least, apparently it's been tested. And if you have one nation on one celestial body, it's going to get confusing, or it's somehow not sustainable.
Like internally.
Yeah.
For that colony.
Exactly. Apparently it's healthy for a planet to have at least 2 nations, because they kind of...
To balance each other?
Yeah, or they keep each other on edge, or, to try out different things and so on. If it's basically one, apparently it doesn't work. I don't know. I think for me, it's mostly confusing. Bases, colonies, nations, and so on. It's all kinds of reasons. But that's kind of the setup. And in our solar system, depending on which celestial body we're talking about, it's either...
did we say it? So a celestial body, a planet, a moon, an asteroid, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So not all celestial bodies.
No.
Okay, I think that kind of sets the frame. And I think it makes sense to address basically all the relevant bodies, all the relevant planets, moons, and so on. And I want to try, because we learned this in school, if I at least know the planets out of the top of my head. Okay, basically starting from the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth.
Yep.
Mars, Jupiter, Clarabelle, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune.
That's it. At least that's as I remember it too.
I mean, I the last 3 are easy, because the first letters start with SUN, making sun.
Yep.
So it starts with sun, ends with sun.
Makes sense.
Shall we take turns? Basically introducing the...
Yeah, giving at least some information about each of the planets you just mentioned, and then a bit more as well.
Shall I start?
Please do.
Mercury. Please listen to episode 38. I'm making it easy for myself. Or is it 83?
38.
38.
We haven't got to 83 yet.
Oh, that's right.
That's in the future.
Just
for all of us.
Just listen to episode 38. The main thing to take away from that, if you didn't listen to the episode, is we have massive reflector shields on that planet. It's as you can imagine, it's super hot.
And the side that's facing the sun.
Yeah. And direct solar power was causing all kinds of issues on Earth, global cooling and such. So we put reflector shields on Mercury, and now we get all our energy from basically Mercury. We're always talking about Mercury. Of course, it is actually solar energy that is just reflected off the...
But coming through there or from there.
Exactly. Other than that, it's super hot, and there's no humans there, but there's robots there that work on Mercury, keeping the reflector shields up and running. Other than that, it's super hot and not a very friendly environment.
Correct. I know I'm repeating myself, but the side which is always facing the sun is super hot, and that's where all the action is, and the side which faces away is obviously super cold, but we don't do anything there.
Yeah.
We being anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Being anyone. So, but if you want to put a label on it, Mercury is a basis planet.
A base. Lots and lots of bases, right? But it's not anywhere.
Nobody lives there.
No one lives there. The robots are there temporarily, and they cycle back to Earth, and no one's living there permanently.
Yeah.
The next one that you mentioned earlier is Venus, and they have a motto. So there's also a whole lot of bases, and the motto, though, they have a motto, even though it's mostly bases. I'm your fire at your desire.
I like that.
It's good.
It's also a motto that you remember, because it's a hot planet, and they have fire in the motto.
Yeah,
and it rhymes.
It does that. And this place, so it's also very hot, and the atmosphere is toxic both to humans and robots. Very high pressure, and the issue as well is, it's so we can we have the technology to warm up planets. That was very useful for Mars, which we'll come to later. But we cannot really cool them down. At least, within a base, of course, you can have air conditioning, but we don't have the technology to cool down a whole planet to the point where it's comfortable.
And also, I have because we've progressed in all the things we can do, I still have no idea how could we cool down a planet. Like, can we reflect the cold of Neptune back to
Venus, to
Venus,
exchange it, maybe? That's one way. And but I mean, so part of the reason it's so hot there is that the pressure is so high.
Yeah.
So, how do you take away the pressure? No. So.
Or put like an incredibly large sunscreen on the
okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Build something on the outside. Yeah, but at least right now we cannot do that.
And also, I think if you put that, then
you're affecting other things, yeah.
And monkey with the energy we're getting from Mercury, because Venus is pretty big.
Right, in Mercury's case, and it sometimes might block it.
Yeah, and we already have enough Mercury blackouts as it is.
That's true, and also it might mess with what they're most well known for is their really delicious ice cream. We don't want to mess with that.
No, that's the funny thing is it's one of the best ice cream is coming from Venus.
Yeah.
No idea how they're doing that.
No, but that's a good reason not to monkey with their atmosphere more, or at all.
But have humans been to Venus?
Not to this. I mean, no one, not even robots, can go down to the surface itself. They've been flying to it and investigating it, but no one has landed on it.
I think it's kind of like it's basically if you basically teleport to, let's say, I don't know, South Africa. Nobody stops halfway, because whatever. Maybe it's a bad example, but basically, there's a lot of transport going to Mercury.
Yeah.
And everybody just passes by Venus. It's like basically.
I mean, depending on where the planets are. Yeah, sometimes you're passing by it. Sometimes it's nowhere near there. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you imagine. Especially when you list out the planets from the sun outwards, you imagine them all in a line.
Yeah, that's true.
They are most of the time not all in a line.
No. Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Next one. Thank you.
Then it's me, Earth.
Hey, I know that place.
So let's tell the people from the 21st century about Earth. So it's a planet named after dirt.
Yeah,
because that's what it consists of.
Right, there's so much here.
I also find it interesting because you can say good and bad things about the planets in our solar system, but they have some really cool names, and you have to say that. I mean, Mars, and that really has a ring to it.
It does. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind living on Mars just because of the cool name, and it's like Earth has all kinds of really nice things, but the name.
Right, but it's not named. I mean, the thing it's named for. Is very important. It's what we grow, or what everything grows in.
Yeah.
So it's a really important thing, but just somehow the name doesn't really inspire much of anything.
It's really down to earth.
It is that.
But you have a fair point. Like Earth is really its USP.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a unique selling point.
Yeah, exactly. None of the other planets really have something like that. And if you see what grows on Earth,
it
made us. So I guess that's
bananas.
Yeah, bananas. Cacao beans.
Yeah. Whole lot of things.
And a bunch of other things. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, but let's not hover on Earth too long.
No. Okay, so then the next is the moon. The moon, yeah. I mean, there are many moons around many planets in the solar system, but of course, when we say the moon, we mean the one orbiting Earth. And that's after Earth, that's the place with the most people living there, the most established. So there are two nations, or there are more than two nations, such as Albedo and Rupees.
They're the most famous ones.
Yeah.
They're also
the largest, yeah. So right, the after Earth, that's the place with the largest population of humans.
Yeah, which is surprising, actually. I think it's because it's the closest.
That's what I was going to say.
It's not necessarily the nicest.
No, not the nicest, but it definitely is the closest. Right, and one of the larger problems, there is no atmosphere. Like Mars at least has an atmosphere,
Pros and cons, they say.
Yeah. The moon does not. And so, for example, meteor showers, they can be pretty problematic. Cause a lot of damage. Sure, like a hailstorm, but the effects are much greater or much more severe.
But have you been to the moon?
Visited, yeah. I went there recently to get some pizza.
Oh, yeah. I think, didn't we once order pizza,
Yeah,
and then it came from the moon.
It did. We didn't when we ordered. We just looked up, "Hey, tasty pizza." We didn't realize it was coming all the way from there, but it's relatively close. It was fine.
Nice. I think I've definitely been to the moon, but like they have different nations, but they're kind of not distinguishable.
It's more of a bureaucrat. I mean, they're on different parts of the moon, like of the moon's surface. So, okay, they're distinguishable by geography, at least distance. But sure, when you're actually within them, because by definition they need to be enclosed bases. So a base, that's another thing, yeah. But they're enclosed because there is no atmosphere. So there's a certain similarity to the way everything is built there, the way things feel, the way things smell, and so on.
I think it's something I would maybe learn to fly my own space shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could,
so that you could go there more often.
Yeah,
yeah, it's close enough.
I could fly you to the moon and back.
Indeed, that'd be nice.
Okay, moon. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the least interesting because I don't know. It feels like it's the most standard one.
Yeah. Right, when you visit there, especially if you're there for a while, you notice, hey, why am I not going outside anymore? Why am I inside the whole time? But other than that, it feels very similar to a lot of cities here on Earth.
I think in the beginning it was popular for the low gravity.
That is a difference, of course.
Yeah, I mean, especially
that's fun to play with.
Especially the sports. I mean, that's. I mean, there's a lot of famous sportsmen coming from there, because you have first of all a lot of space, and then you can really practice, golf and tennis and whatever in that.
But it's more so they come from there, but that's where they're famous.
Yeah,
if they come to Earth, they have the gravity is so much greater that it causes issues. Yeah, it's the other way around. When athletes are getting like a bit older here on Earth, and they can't quite keep up.
True.
They still need a few years to adjust, but they go to the moon and then they have like a second career.
Yeah, that's true actually. But I find it interesting. They also you have moon rules, especially for example when you play golf. You need different rules because you hit a golf ball. You need like really long time before you get to the hole. Yeah. Okay. Shall I continue?
Please do.
So next one up is Mars, and interesting enough, Mars has a nickname, Planet of the Apes. Because there's a lot of the sentient animals. I think we covered them in a previous episode. A lot of primates move there, and
the chimpanzees, orangutans.
Exactly. So I can't remember anymore now. Why did they decide to leave on Mars, or why did they went to Mars?
Right, like why in such large numbers? You mean?
Yeah, I can't remember anymore. But I think it's a thing where maybe just the first went, and then this went around, and other people were like, I want to move. A lot of them are on the moon, let's go there. And somehow there's just a lot of them there. So especially compared to Earth average, there's a lot of primates there, sentient ones, so Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
But Mars, of course, it's much more than that. Funny enough, where the nations on the moon have nice sounding names that are really not really distinguishable. On Mars, there's just two, Yakyabula and Yabiringil. And I'm pronouncing them because I read them from my lens, because I can never remember them.
To differentiate between the two, you mean? Or just to remember them?
Yeah, they're really, for me, really hard to remember.
Oh, okay.
And
I mean, the way I remember them, so because they both begin with the letters YA, I just skip that part. Like for myself to remember them differently, okay. Like I remember that's always on the front, but one's Glagbula and one's Biringal.
Oh, that makes it actually easier.
I do that sometimes when there are some names of people or places, they'll be like a really common beginning. And if you know that's pretty much always there, at least for me, I remember the part after.
And also, this is again where maybe I could have prepared a little better. They are based on something.
The names you mean?
Yeah. They're based on, I don't know, famous explorers.
Okay.
Or so.
I
Maybe
don't
the
know
first
myself.
astronauts that landed on
they
Mars.
got to Mars? Okay.
Or famous astronauts from stories. Like a fairy tale with astronauts or something like that. I can't remember.
I mean, I don't even know, so I'll defer to you.
But on the other hand, maybe our listeners know,
they may know,
and they can tell us.
Please do, people in the past.
Or if you don't know, ask us, and then we will follow up.
We'll look it up.
Answer a listener question.
And actually, so this is a bit of a funny thing to do. We've not done this before. We still have like the other half of the solar system to go. So I'd like to actually, if we take this moment, let's pause, tell people how to reach us. Basically end the episode here, yeah?
Uh-huh.
And then people in the past listening to us, come back next week and you'll hear the next 5 minutes.
We can say this is part 1.
Exactly.
And next week we have Soul part 2.
We can do that. We've not done it before, but I figured let's give it a go. Because the reason being, I fear otherwise this episode may get up to an hour long or something.
And then we can start with, we're back, and this is where the names came from. Oh, yeah. I like that.
Oh, right. I didn't consider that, but exactly. We could actually do a bit of research between.
Do we still do the listener question? Do we have any listener questions? Or is that...
I think we do, but let's do that at the end of
really cut it here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it. Spontaneous.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say if you're listening to this episode, please let us know that you heard it. This is number 61, I think. Yeah, 61. Put number 61 in the subject line and send the email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com. If you don't want to type that all out, you can look in your show notes in your podcast listening app and you should see it there, and tap on it. And we want you to email us because we want to know that this successfully went back in time. And of course, if you have any questions, you can ask us.
Wow. Okay. Then thanks for listening. And please come back for part 2 in 200 years.
Bye-bye.